Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to preach, I'm here to talk about something real, something we've all seen and maybe even felt. Let's get into it. 3 signs a man is broken. Now, I want you to listen closely, not just with your ears, but with your spirit, because understanding these signs isn't just about seeing the struggle. It's about finding the strength to rise above it. When a man has lost his purpose, you can feel it. It's in his walk, his talk, and the silence between his words. The spark that once drove him, the thing that got him out of bed every morning, is now gone. You see, purpose isn't just a lofty idea or a motivational slogan. It's the foundation of a man's soul. It's what gives meaning to the daily grind, the challenges, and the victories. Without it, a man can feel like a shell of the person he was meant to be. We all go through hard times, right? Life doesn't pull any punches. It tests you, pushes you, and sometimes it breaks you down. But a man with purpose, he gets up. He might be bruised, he might be battered, but he still has a reason to keep moving forward. When purpose is gone, a man starts to feel like everything he's done has been in vain, like there's no point in pushing any further. The weight of this feeling can be crushing. He starts to question, why am I here? What's the point of all this struggle? It's not just about ambition or success. Purpose is deeper than that. It's what gives a man his direction. It's the fire that burns in him, telling him that tomorrow is worth fighting for. Without it, a man can lose his way. He might start floating aimlessly, like a boat without a rudder, just drifting along with whatever current comes his way. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because when you lose your purpose, you start losing sight of yourself. You forget what you're capable of. And that, my friends, is when you're most vulnerable. Now, I'm not saying a man's purpose should never evolve or change. Life will do that to you. It will challenge you to grow, to shift, to find new meaning as you go along. But the key is to keep searching. You have to keep looking for that thing that keeps you alive, that gets your blood pumping, that makes you feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself. And trust me, that's different for every man. And some men find their purpose in family, others in career, others in service to their community, or in the quiet moments of self-reflection. But the moment you stop seeking it, that's when you've truly lost your way. A man without purpose is like a plant without sunlight. He starts to wither, he doesn't grow, his roots don't go deep. You see him standing there, and on the outside he might look okay, but inside he's empty. His energy is spent trying to figure out what's next. And that's exhausting. The world demands so much from you, and when you're not rooted in your purpose, you'll get lost in the... But here's the truth. It's never too late to find your purpose. It may take time, it may take trials and tribulations, but the moment you rediscover why you're here, you rediscover yourself. And when a man finds his purpose again, watch out. He'll move mountains. He'll turn his pain into power. He'll wake up every day ready to fight, because now he knows what he's fighting for. The journey back to purpose isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. When a man disconnects from his emotions, you can see it in the way he carries himself. Stoic, distant, closed off. He's no longer vulnerable. He's built a wall so high that not even the closest people can break through. There was a time when he felt everything: joy, sadness, anger, hope. But now it's like all those emotions have been shut out, buried beneath layers of indifference. And that's where the trouble begins. Because emotions aren't just some soft, optional part of us. They're vital. They define how we react to life, how we connect with others, and ultimately, how we survive it all. You see, a man who's disconnected from his emotions isn't necessarily a man who's strong. He may appear tough on the outside, but what's happening inside is far more dangerous. He's running from his own truth. He's ignoring the hurt, the fear, the grief, all because he's been taught or maybe told himself that being vulnerable is a weakness. In a society that demands stoicism, many men suppress their feelings, believing that emotions are a luxury they can't afford. The result? They start to lose touch with the very thing that makes them human. A man who disconnects from his emotions might not even realize it at first. It starts slowly, like a crack in a dam. He doesn't cry when he's hurting. He doesn't talk about his struggles. He bottles everything up and convinces himself that he's fine. But the truth is, ignoring pain doesn't make it go away. it festers. And over time, that pain turns into anger, bitterness, and an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Guess what? It starts to eat at him from the inside out. He's no longer able to process what's happening around him. It's like his emotional compass breaks, and he starts moving through life numb, disconnected from everything and everyone. He might even isolate himself because it's easier than dealing with the complexity of emotions. But make no mistake, disconnecting from emotions doesn't make you invincible. In fact, it weakens you in ways that can't be seen on the surface. When a man shuts down his emotions, he also shuts down his capacity for empathy, for connection, for love. He becomes isolated in a world that demands real human interaction. The inability to express emotions or to understand the emotions of others can create a barrier so thick that he becomes a stranger, even to those closest to him. Relationships suffer, trust suffers, and ultimately so does he, because we were made to feel. We were made to experience life with all its highs and lows. And when we deny that part of ourselves, we miss out on the richness that life has to offer. A man who's disconnected from his emotions is also disconnected from his own power. Emotions, both the light and the dark, are the fuel behind our actions. They give us the fire to pursue our dreams, to fight for the ones we love, to stand up when life knocks us down. Without that fire, a man becomes a shell. Functional, yes, but not alive in the way he was meant to be. The courage to face your feelings, to sit with the pain and the joy, is what makes a man truly strong. And the sooner a man can confront his emotions, no matter how messy, how painful, the sooner he'll find his way back to himself. Because a man who can embrace his emotions is a man who can embrace life. And that's the kind of strength that lasts. When a man is surrounded by darkness, it's not always the kind you can see. Sure, sometimes it's literal, negative environments, toxic people, and places that drain your soul. But more often than not, the darkness that surrounds a man is invisible. It's in his mind, his heart, and his spirit. It's the weight of self-doubt, the shadows of regret, and the suffocating pressure of a world that can feel relentless. And when you're surrounded by that kind of darkness, it becomes harder and harder to find your way out. You might look at a man who is engulfed in this darkness and think he's just going through a tough time. But the truth is, when someone is immersed in this kind of environment, whether it's external or internal, they start to lose sight of who they are. They become overwhelmed by negativity. They begin to see life through a filter of hopelessness, as if every step they take only leads them deeper into the abyss. It's like a cloud hanging over their head, and no matter how hard they try, they can't escape its grip. And the longer they stay in that darkness, the harder it becomes to even remember what the light feels like. It's not always easy to recognize the darkness at first. Sometimes it starts small, almost imperceptible. A bad day here, a negative thought there. But over time, those little moments begin to build up. The man starts to surround himself with people who bring him down rather than lift him up. He fills his life with habits that serve as temporary distractions, but never truly heal him. Maybe it's the endless cycle of self-destructive behavior or the constant pursuit of things that give him momentary pleasure but never lasting fulfillment. Slowly, he becomes trapped, and he begins to accept the darkness as his reality. It becomes comfortable, even familiar, and that's when the danger sets in. Because when you start to believe that darkness is all there is, you lose your will to fight for the light. A man in this situation often starts to feel isolated. He feels like no one understands him, or worse, that no one cares. The people around him might not even see it. He might be the guy who puts on a smile, who carries the weight of the world without showing a crack. But underneath that facade, the darkness is gnawing at him, clouding his thoughts, eating away at his peace. And the more isolated he becomes, the further away the light seems. But here's the truth. Darkness doesn't have to define you. It's part of life. Everyone goes through it. It's inescapable at times. But being surrounded by darkness doesn't mean you have to live there forever. The key to breaking free is not to fight the darkness head on, but to start looking for the light, even if it's just a tiny glimmer at first. That light can lead you out. You have to seek it. even when it feels impossible. You have to surround yourself with people who lift you up, with environments that inspire you to grow, with thoughts that fuel your purpose. Because the moment you start to let the light back in, the darkness starts to lose its power. A man surrounded by darkness is not a lost cause. He's a man in need of healing, in need of love, and in need of the courage to step out of the shadows. And when he does, when he steps into the light again, he will discover strength he never knew he had. Darkness may be a part of the journey, but it doesn't have to be the end of the story. When a man stops believing in himself, everything starts to change, inside and out. At first, it might be subtle. He doubts his abilities here and there, questions his decisions a little more often, and wonders if maybe he's not as capable as he once thought. But slowly, over time, those doubts grow, and they start to cloud his vision. He begins to see himself through the lens of his failures, his mistakes, and the things that didn't go as planned. And the more he focuses on what he didn't achieve, the harder it becomes to believe in the person he could be. A man who stops believing in himself starts to lose his drive. He may wake up each day and go through the motions, but there's no passion, no spark in his eyes. The fire that once fueled him is extinguished, replaced by a quiet resignation. He begins to tell himself stories about his limitations, about how he's not good enough, how he doesn't deserve success or happiness. And those stories become his reality. The mind is powerful, and when you stop believing in your own potential, you allow your thoughts to dictate your future. Without belief in yourself, there's no will to push forward, no motivation to try again when things get tough. You start to accept defeat before the battle even begins. This loss of self-belief isn't just about confidence, it's about self-worth. A man who no longer believes in himself often begins to question his value. He might compare himself to others, wondering why they seem to have it all together while he's stuck in the same place. He might look back at his past and feel regret, wishing he had made different choices or taken different paths. But all of that only reinforces the negative narrative in his head. He forgets to recognize his strengths, his accomplishments, and the resilience he's shown over the years. Instead, he focuses only on the moments where he felt weak, unsure, or unsuccessful. When a man stops believing in himself, he also stops trusting in his own decisions. He begins to doubt every choice he makes, second-guessing himself at every turn. Should he take that job? Should he speak up in that meeting? Should he make that change in his life? The fear of making the wrong decision paralyzes him, and he becomes stagnant, stuck in a cycle of indecision. Every opportunity that comes his way is clouded by the belief that he's not capable of handling it. And in that cycle of doubt and fear, he misses out on chances for growth, success, and fulfillment. But here's the truth. Belief in yourself is not something you can just wait for to magically appear. It's something you have to work on, something you have to cultivate. Believing in yourself doesn't mean thinking you're perfect or that everything you do will be successful. It means trusting that you are enough, that you have what it takes to overcome challenges, and that you are worthy of happiness and success. It means being kind to yourself, forgiving yourself for mistakes, and remembering that no failure is final unless you allow it to define you. The moment a man starts to believe in himself again, things begin to shift. He starts to take risks, to face challenges head on, and to believe that he can handle whatever life throws away. He understands that setbacks are just part of the journey, not the end of it. And most importantly, he stops measuring his worth based on external validation and begins to find his confidence within. Because when a man believes in himself, he becomes unstoppable. He realizes that the power to change his life is always within his reach. And that's a strength that nothing can take away. When a man neglects his faith, he begins to drift away from the very core of who he is. Faith isn't just about religion or a belief in a higher power, though for many it is. Faith is the foundation that grounds a man's life. It's the belief that there is something greater than himself, something worth striving toward, something that gives him purpose and direction. But when that faith is neglected, something deep inside starts to unravel. But a man can become lost, disconnected from his inner strength, and disconnected from the world around him. And the longer he neglects it, the harder it becomes to find his way back. Faith provides the resilience that a man needs to get through life's challenges. It's the quiet strength that carries him through the darkest moments, the belief that there's a purpose to his struggles, that there's something to be learned, even in pain. When a man neglects his faith, he begins to face these challenges alone. He might still go through the motions of daily life, but inside, he feels empty. There's no guiding light to help him make sense of his pain or push him through his fears. Without faith, he's left to rely on his own understanding and strength, which can feel incredibly isolating. The weight of the world starts to feel unbearable, and the burden of navigating life on his own can wear him down. When faith is neglected, a man also loses the connection to something larger than himself. The world becomes smaller, more focused on the immediate and the material. He might get caught up in the pursuit of success, status, or things that only bring temporary satisfaction. These things, while they may seem important in the moment, don't nourish the soul. A man who neglects his faith is left feeling disconnected from the deeper meaning in life, from the values that guide his choices, and from the sense of purpose that can give his life direction. Without that connection, he starts to question his place in the world. He becomes unsure of where he's headed, and the things that once mattered now seem trivial. In addition to this inner disconnection, neglecting faith can also lead a man to lose hope in the future. Faith is what gives a person hope, the belief that tomorrow will be better, that challenges can be overcome, and that life has meaning beyond what we can see. When a man stops believing, when he neglects the spiritual or moral compass that once guided him, he starts to lose his sense of hope. He might start thinking that nothing will change, that he's stuck in a cycle with no way out. The future becomes uncertain, and that uncertainty can breed fear and despair. But here's the thing, faith isn't something that disappears forever. It may feel distant, but it can always be rekindled. It's about finding that connection again, whether it's through prayer, reflection, or simply taking a moment to reconnect with what you believe in. Faith isn't a one-time thing. It's something you have to nurture, something that requires attention, just like any other important relationship in your life. It's a tricky and difficult process, but it's ultimately the process that includes all of the 4 relationships in your life. When a man begins to restore his faith, when he starts to believe in something greater than himself again, he finds his strength. He finds the courage to face the challenges ahead, to live with purpose, and to trust that no matter how dark things may get, there is always a light to guide him home. Faith is what fuels the soul. When a man nurtures it, he becomes grounded in the truth that he's not alone. He's part of something bigger. And with that knowledge, he can face anything life throws at him with courage, resilience, and hope. When a man forgets his worth, he begins to diminish himself in ways that are often invisible to those around him. He might still go through the motions of life, putting on a brave face, but inside, he feels like he's less than he should be. This loss of self-worth isn't just about thinking negatively of yourself. It's a deeper, more insidious belief that you no longer have value, that you're not enough, that you have no appearance value and not withholding it, that you can live a good life if you believe it, and that you need the courage to fight. This belief seeps into every part of his life, from his relationships to his work, and it clouds his judgment, making it difficult for him to see the potential within himself. A man who's forgotten his worth begins to accept less than he deserves. He settles for relationships that drain him, for jobs that don't fulfill him, for situations that keep him in a cycle of dissatisfaction. He starts to believe that he doesn't deserve more, that the best things in life are for other people, not for him. Over time, this belief becomes so ingrained that he stops fighting for the things that truly matter. Over time, this belief becomes so ingrained that he starts fighting for the things that truly matter. He becomes passive, allowing life to happen to him rather than taking control. He may even start to think that there's something wrong with him, that he's not worthy of success, happiness, or love. This mindset keeps him stuck, locked in a cycle of self-sabotage and missed opportunities. When a man forgets his worth, he also forgets the impact he has on others. Every person carries a unique gift, a skill, a perspective, a presence that can positively affect the people around them. But when a man doesn't recognize his own value, he often pulls back from contributing, from stepping up, from being the person others need him to be. He might withhold his talents, his opinions, his support, because he no longer believes that what he has to offer matters. The result is that not only does he lose touch with his potential, but the world around him loses something valuable as well. This lack of self-worth also breeds fear. A man who doesn't believe in himself is constantly afraid of failure. He's terrified of taking risks because deep down he's convinced that he won't succeed. So he plays it safe, avoids challenges, and shrinks away from opportunities. He starts to question his abilities, doubting himself before even trying. This fear becomes paralyzing, and it prevents him from reaching his full potential. He might miss out on career advancements, personal growth, or meaningful connections simply because he doesn't believe he has what it takes to succeed. But here's the truth. A man's worth is not defined by his circumstances, his failures, or the opinions of others. His worth is intrinsic, something that cannot be taken away no matter how many setbacks he faces or how harsh the world may seem. Worth comes from within. It's the recognition of your own humanity, your own dignity, and your own potential. It's knowing that you have a right to happiness, to success, and to love simply because you exist. Restoring a man's belief in his worth starts with self-acceptance. It starts with forgiving himself for past mistakes, recognizing the lessons learned from failure, and celebrating the small victories along the way. It means reminding himself that he is worthy of good things, that he has something valuable to contribute, and that his presence in this world matters. When a man remembers his worth, he starts to live differently, more confidently, more boldly, and more authentically. He no longer settles for less than he deserves because he knows that he is worthy of the best that life has to offer. Remembering one's worth isn't just about feeling good, it's about living with purpose. It's about stepping into your power and recognizing that you are enough, exactly as you are, and that you have everything within you to build the life you desire. When a man remembers his worth, he becomes unstoppable because he knows that he has the right to create, to succeed, and to live a life filled with meaning and fulfillment.